I think that. Oh, this was a good song. Coming up. I gotta play a second of it. Oh. I don't know what to do. I'm always dreaming you. You'll make these dreams come true. I'm always dreaming you. Make this dream come true. Ooh, 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 yeah. Hey, hey, hey. Okay, yeah. I don't know why I cannot select this thing. I want to move it around. Everyone's got the perspective and how they view life. Everyone does. Why can't I just do what I want? I wanna do what I want. Damn, I can play color correction? Okay. Why don't you play the game? Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. This is intense. Didn't know I can mess with this that much. Damn. Well, now I know, Mike. It's Mike's super short show. B, C, D, E, F, motherfrickin' G. Alright. I'm just playing over here. I'll show you what I'm doing. Just adding a filter to this layer right here. I was trying to move it around, do some type of music video type of thing, but I can't move it for some reason. It's not allowing me to select it. Anything else I can select. Current song. I move this around. I can't move my little image around. Oh, yeah. Oh. Alright, back to reality. Down real quick, sorry. Oh man, that was good. That was a good little breakdown. Good little breakdown, Sesh. Need to comment on down now. Let's see, oh. Is there anybody here? Nope, but it's alright. It's a... okay... Eric with a K. Alright, time to get to business. Time to get to business, so. Gotta be real. Gotta be real with what I'm telling myself. I've got to be honest. I've got to be free. I mean, you don't have to be free, but I'd like to be free. Oh, excuse me. Resources IRS.
.201 that says that they have a right to estimate the amount of taxes which you have omitted from your return, and there is no other statute that gives them the right to estimate the amount of taxes that you omitted to be paid. That's it. Okay, now here's the way we conduct our big audit. We go in there that they have a right to estimate the amount of taxes which you have omitted from your returns. That they have a right to estimate the amount of taxes which you have omitted from your return, and there is no other statute that gives them the right to estimate the amount of taxes that you omitted to be paid. That's it. Okay, now here's the way we conduct our big audit. We go up there with these documents and a few other documents in my audit packet. We let them ask a few questions. He may ask, would you bring your documents you bring here? He may ask your name, and you answer the questions, and then we suggest that you pretend not to know too much. We want to lull them into a false sense of security. And you have your code with you, and you have this, in your briefcase. They can't see it. Also, you tell them you're going to tape record this, and as long as you tell them you have a right to tape record, and as long as you tell them 10 days before, if you go up with your tape recorder, and if you don't tell them, they'll say we'll terminate the interview. They want to tape. Okay, so now I got my tape recorder there. I got my code book here. And what I do is I have a big tab next to section 6201. It always pays to go up. You can use this document if you want, but the code book, the code book is more intimidating. I've actually had people tell me that they started to shake when they see the law in front of them, because they know they lie, and I got the law. Okay, so what you do is you have the tab. And I see you have the tab next to section 6201. Okay. Now, what I do is we have this tab. Let me just take this tab. Well, I don't have a tab. Let me have a tab. Let me have a card. Okay. I should have had a tab here. 6201. Okay. Now, I wait. I let the IRS agent ask me a few questions. Then I say, now, let me understand, what are you trying to estimate the amount of taxes that I omitted to be paid from my return? And I don't care what he says. He may say, well, I'm not estimating anything. You send in your W-4s and it showed this time. I said, yeah, but basically what you're trying to do is estimate the amount of taxes that I omitted from my return. Is that what you're doing? And finally he says yes to that. The minute he says yes to that, I take out my code and I turn to section 6201. And you highlight that in yellow, and you read it. What I do is estimate the amount of taxes that I omitted from my return. Is that what you're doing? And finally, he says yes to that. The minute he says yes to that, I take out my code and I turn to section 6201. Getting anything, you send in your W-4s and it showed this time. I said, yeah, but basically what you're trying to do is estimate the amount of taxes that I omitted from my return. Is that what you're doing? And finally, he says yes to that. The minute he says yes to that, I take out my code and I turn to section 6201.
All right, 6201. I'm going to pull it up here in a minute. All right. I'm pretty much just fact checking everything that this guy Erwin Schiff, he's a great person. His son is also understanding a lot of the problems that we got going on right now. He actually just uploaded a video today. It's a pretty good one from 2011, 2012. Him speaking to Congress about his ideas on how to fix our debt deficit. It's nuts. Pretty much just pull government out of from giving like freebies and stuff, and from being able to save the banks and stuff. Like things need to fail in order, and we need us to have a recession in order for us to move forward and like grow. It's a fantastic idea, a concept. It's worked one time before a long while ago, and you know the government wasn't involved with business. There's just like too many regulations, making things really difficult. Just looking for a section. Here we go. And then he said 6201. Making a PowerPoint right now, pretty much solidifying everything that he's saying and creating my own little package of something. In general.
And you highlight that in yellow, and you read it for him. It says, with taxes payable by stamp, it says Secretary is authorized to estimate the amount of tax which has been omitted to be paid by stamp. Now you show me, you just said you estimated the amount of taxes I omitted from my return. You show me the code section that authorizes you to do that. As a matter of fact, I even got my checkbook here. Bring up your checkbook, open it up. If you can show me the statute that authorizes you to do it, I'll write you out a check right now. Well, what's he going to? There's no section that authorizes him to do it. He can't do it. Now, on top of it all, if he says, well, I don't have to show you anything, or what, now you have this, he may do that. And again, a lot of this is covered in my audit, which is I have a 2-hour tape in the audit packet. But now you have with you also section 6011 and 6001. It says, when required by regulations. Now, regardless of what the agent tells you, you say, look, is there a statute that says I have to do what you tell me? If you have, let me see it. The law says I got to comply with regulations, and I want to comply with those regulations. So you show me a regulation that authorizes you to estimate the amount of taxes I omitted from my return, and a regulation that says I got to do what you tell me, and I got my checkbook right here, and I'll write out a check. You can't do either. So basically we got them, because what you're going to do is you're going to have a tape, you're going to make a tape of that, and you're going to make a transcript of the tape and send it to the district director. Because what we're doing here, section 7433 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is a relatively new section, says that if any IRS agent violates any law in connection with this, you can sue the government for up to $1 million in damages. Estimate the amount of taxes I omitted from my return, and a regulation that says I got to do what you tell me, and I got my checkbook right here, and I'll write out a check. You can't do either. So basically we got them, because what you're going to do is you're going to have a tape, you're going to make a tape of that, and you're going to make a transcript of the tape and send it to the district director. Because what we're doing here, section 7433 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is a relatively new section, says that if any IRS agent violates any law in connection with this, you can sue the government.
7433.
government for up to $1 million. What we're doing here, Section 7433 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is a relatively new section, says that if any IRS agent violates any law in connection with this, you can sue the government for up to $1 million in damages. Section 7433 of the Internal Revenue Code. Incidentally, when an IRS agent tells you that you have to pay a tax or that he's going to seize your property, what we do is we say, oh, in other words, what am I liable for? Well, we're going to get to this when I get to liens and levy. The point is, if he tries to estimate a tax, after you offered to pay it, you had your checkbook. You went up to the audit with your checkbook. And if he says you owe more money than you reported, I'm willing to pay you right now on the spot. Just show me the statute and the regulation that requires me to pay it. And he can't produce it. And you'll have proof of that on the tape.
What recourse do you have when an employer refuses to honor your statement and start to turn property over to the IRS on a fraudulent levy?
Okay, you can sue him in state court for breach of contract. And you don't sue him in federal court, you sue him in state court. Because if you claimed exempt, the statute gives you a perfect right to claim exempt. Now, if he turns your money over to a third party, forget it's the federal government, it's a third party without a court order, with your permission. How can your employer give your money to a third party without your permission or a court order? Mm-hmm. Now, remember, as we discussed, when your employer gets a notice of levy, what you have to do is give your employer a sworn affidavit that the IRS agent had no delegation of authority to send a notice of levy. Now, it's up to him to check with that IRS agent and to see if he had the delegation of authority, which he's not going to have. Mm-hmm. And therefore, in any lawsuit, he has the burden of proof showing that he turned over your money to somebody authorized to get it. And the IRS agent will not be able to produce any such authority.
Well, what I've found out is that a lot of times the fact that you're employed may be in jeopardy because just bringing up the simple fact of arguing the point. And so, I'm wondering what type of remedy there is outside of going to the federal courts.
Well, you could, and there's possibility. I've heard of people, because they claimed exempt, they were terminated. And you can bring an action against your employer for under the labor laws for false termination of employment. However, the last time I wanted to do that for somebody, when he called me, he got a job a couple of days later, so there was really no loss. Now, sometimes people say, well, if I do this, I'm going to get terminated. I'm going to get fired. They have to pay taxes. Well, then you got to realize you're making a lot less money than you're actually earning. You're paying extortion for the privilege of working there. You either got to get another job or assert yourself. I think if you assert yourself correctly, if you bring the law to your employer, you say, look, I know Jerry had this problem. Jerry worked in the hospital, right, Jerry? What was your experience?
Well, I brought the law to my employer and let him know about the W-4. And once he had looked it over and understand what it was, then he had no problem with it. Matter of fact, I got kind of bold, and when it came up to reapply the W-4 for the following year, I said, well, I'm not turning in any W-4s, and he begged for one.
But the point is, Jerry's experience was initially, Jerry, they didn't want to honor your W-4, and you went, like he worked in a hospital, he went all the way up to the controller with the Internal Revenue Code, and eventually they honored it.
Yeah, they not only did they honor it, they asked for it again. By the next year, it was legit, and they realized that it was a legal document and everything was okay. I guess they checked it out with the IRS or whoever it was, and they demanded to have it then.
So the point is, I don't want to interrupt, but the point is you can do it. And I've heard many people tell me where they initially didn't want to honor it. I know in Las Vegas where more and more casinos are honoring W-4s, whole businesses are honoring W-4, especially where the owner of the business understands it. Because you have a right to do it. And, of course, the IRS has no authority to contact the employer and tell him to disregard your W-4. Now, again, I have a W-4 packet, which gives you a lot more information. There's even a court case where a court has ruled that if you claim exempt on your W-4, the employer has to honor it.
When you file the 00 return, and you do get some of the repercussions that the IRS, some of the objections you said could come back, and then you supply them with the appropriate documentation.
Yes.
How long, I mean, is this going to make your life chaos for 3 years, or if you just, is it going to, if you give them the right documentation, how long does it usually take the process?
Well, first of all, it's not chaos. First of all, it saves you the trouble of having to keep books and records, and that to me was a lot of problems. Secondly, you have more money to spend, so you can take trips. I mean, it makes life much easier. The only thing that's going to happen is if they say it's frivolous, we have a 6-page response, and that usually you never hear from them again. If they say we've changed your return, you get a 30-day letter. You say, I want a hearing, and you go down there and you just do exactly what I say. You offer to pay it, show me the regulation. They can't do it.
And you can resolve it probably within that tax year.
Well, yes, I mean, it's no big deal. Now, they may send you a deficiency notice then, trying to kick you to tax court, which is a phony court altogether, and we have letters that eliminate the deficiency notice. Because when you get we discussed that a deficiency notice is sent by the IRS if you can't resolve your problem when you go to tax court. But tax court isn't a court, it's just another government agency. And there are no regulations that say you have to pay a deficiency computed by tax court. Once you understand that you're only told to comply with regulations, in any confrontation with the IRS, you simply, I got my checkbook, write out, show me the regulation. I mean, it's no problem. And you have to understand that when you go up to see an IRS agent, you know more than that IRS agent. And pretty soon he'll understand that you know more than he does. And like anything else, you're going to watch this video, you're going to get the tape, you're going to read it, and as we have tapes and you listen to the tapes, and little by little you get more and more familiar with the material, and it becomes simple. The people who get I get a lot of calls from people who are in trouble with the IRS. Talking about people who are in trouble. It's people who file traditional returns. They file a traditional return. Many people file a return. They don't have the money to pay the tax. And so they file it anyway. Now the IRS comes and they want the money. They don't have the money. They try to seize their property. Or somebody files a tax return and the IRS wants to audit you, and you got to go up with your books and records. And then they disallow your deductions, and then you got to hassle with them. I mean, that's a hassle. I mean, it's so great not to have to keep books and records and not to have to worry about these things. I mean, you're really free once you get rid of the income tax.
I've read about things like this that people say to throw away your Social Security card. Is that part of this?
No. I'm glad you raised that, because there's all kinds of misleading information that circulates, sometimes called the patriotic community, or the tax, and that's one of them. No. Whether you owe a tax, remember, has nothing to do with your Social Security. It has to do with the fact that there is no law requiring you to pay the tax. There's no liability, you have no income, and you never got notified you had to pay it. Now, there's a lot of misinformation that circulates. There's some people say, well, you've accepted a benefit from the government, therefore you're required to pay the tax. Or there are people talking about 2 and 3 different United States, or as I said, you've accepted a benefit, or you're sovereign and you're raising these issues, or wages are not taxable because they're not a taxable. But there's all kinds of misinformation that circulates. And one of them is give up your Social Security. The pathetic part about that is if you really could, and I don't even think you can, Social Security taxes would still come out of your pay. Except there's certain benefits you get by having Social Security. Even though you're overpaying for the benefits, if you got disabled, you can get a pension. If you're married and you die, your family has certain death benefits. So the fact is, you do get certain benefits out of Social Security. So I even know of a situation where some woman claimed she was a nurse. For some reason, she claimed she could do that. She gave up her Social Security, and when she told that to the hospital, they fired her. Now, this is the kind of misinformation that circulates. You don't have to give up your Social Security. I don't even think you can, even if you wanted to. But that's a very good question.
I'm in business. What about paying the taxes for being self-employed?
You mean Social Security taxes?
Yeah, Social
Well,
Security.
frankly, this frankly has a much more value to people who are self-employed, I'll tell you. If people follow these procedures, they'll stop the withholding of income taxes, but they'll still have to pay Social Security taxes, which in many cases is substantial. But if you're self-employed, you have what he calls self-employment tax, which is 15% of your adjusted gross. But if you have no income, if you file a zero return, you're going to save self-employment taxes. So you're going to save 15% self-employment taxes plus the income tax. Plus, if you're self-employed, you're not going to have to spend time keeping books and records and collecting all of those receipts, which in many cases can take up 10 and 15 hours a week. So now you'll have far more time to devote to productive purposes rather than just being a pack rat for Uncle Sam.
So you do have to pay the Social Security tax.
Well, the thing is, if you work for wages, when you claim exempt on a W-4, that just stops the withholding of the income tax. It doesn't stop the withholding of Social Security. There might be a way of getting out of Social Security. I wrote a book called The Social Security Swindle, How to Drop Out, but it's not easy to do. For now, we're talking about all we're going to do is get you out of the income tax. But if you work for wages, you're still going to have to probably pay Social Security. But if you're self-employed, we'll get you out of the Social Security taxes also.
I have a question for you. I really don't know anything about the law, so do you really think I can get away with it?
I like that. Do you really think I can get away with it? You're not getting away with anything. You're preventing the government from getting away with it, from getting away with extorting taxes from you. Now, I know a lot of this sounds technical and complicated. It's only because you've heard it for the first time. I guarantee that if you watch this tape 2 or 3 times and read the book, and little by little, you'll understand it, and it'll be much easier, much simpler not to pay income taxes using the methods that we have than paying tax and exposing yourself to IRS audits and IRS intimidations. So I think that once you learn this, I know it's new. It's like anything else. If you went to school, you heard a lecture, it's only when you read your notes and over a few times and everything starts to clear up. So I wouldn't expect you to think, but this is really simple. It's much simpler doing this than keeping books and records and filing a tax return and having to go up to the IRS with your books and records and putting yourself in their power. And I'll tell you what, you're going to feel like a free American. You're going to really see what it is to be free. You're going to find not only do you have more money to spend, but you're going to feel freer. You're going to feel more like an American is supposed to feel. Remember, our founding fathers conceived of the federal government as our servant, not our master. When you pay income taxes, they are your...
1 second, I gotta send an email. I'm gonna send an email to my teacher. I'm not gonna send it. I do need to sign myself up for some things though. Discard. Alright.
master, and you are the servant. Does the master go with his books and records to the servant and say, sir, are my books and records to your liking? Can you imagine Daniel Boone or Patrick Henry or the Adamses or Thomas Jefferson going to a government bureaucrat and say, is my books and records okay? Meet with your... I really see what it is to be free. You're going to find not only do you have more money to spend, but you're going to feel freer. You're going to feel more like an American is supposed to feel. Remember, our founding fathers conceived of the federal government as our servant, not our master. When you pay income taxes, they are your master and you are the servant. Does the master go with his books and records to the servant and say, sir, are my books and records to your liking? Can you imagine Daniel Boone or Patrick Henry or the Adamses or Thomas Jefferson going to a government bureaucrat and say, is my books and records okay? Meet with your approval? I think, as a matter of fact, if you saw the ghosts of Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin walking around and seeing the IRS like the public, the American public, like little lemmings running to IRS offices with their books and records, they would say, gee, why do we bother to write a Constitution? Don't these people know what's in it? So you got to start living like an American.
Well, it sounds all well and good, but if everybody quit paying taxes, who's going to pay for the roads and the police, the fire department, and all the other things that the government gives us?
Kyle, first, that's a good question. Let me tell you something. Roads are paid by gasoline taxes, tolls, highway fees, license fees. That's where the roads get built from. Also, the fire department and all of these civic services get paid primarily by property taxes. So, we had roads and we had highways and we had hospitals before the income tax actually went into effect. But you see, what you're saying is, suppose everybody pays tax. Stop doing this. Now, a very wealthy man, if a very wealthy man went to a tax lawyer, and that tax lawyer was liable to arrange his affairs using offshore trusts and using tax shelters, and he reduced his taxes to zero. This wealthy man doesn't say, gee, suppose everybody does it. He just does it. A former judge, learned hand, said nobody has a patriotic duty to pay more taxes than required by law, and the law doesn't require you to pay. The fact of the matter is, I do what tax lawyers do, but I'm much better and much cheaper. Person goes to a tax lawyer, Kyle, and what does that tax lawyer try to do? Reduce his taxes to the lowest possible number possible. And if the tax lawyer can reduce it to zero, he does it. Except it will cost the individual a heck of a lot of money. And here it only costs a couple of $100, and you don't pay income taxes. But look, if a person wants to pay his fair share, I have no objections to somebody writing out a check and sending it to the government. But don't send them a return, because all the information on there can be used against you. So if you want to pay income taxes because you think that's the thing to do, Kyle.
Not me.
Okay.
But is it really the patriotic thing to do?
Absolutely, because we want to take back America. Because the former Chief Justice, as I pointed out, said the power to tax is the power to destroy, and the federal government has been destroying America's economic strength with excessive taxation, destroying American businesses. Do you think if Thomas Edison had to contend with the IRS, he'd ever have time to invent an electric light? Think of Henry Ford when he was working on his car with the Wright brothers. If they had to keep every receipt and worry about the IRS auditing their books and records, we wouldn't have airplanes, we wouldn't have telephones, we wouldn't have anything. We'd be back in the 19th century. And of course, it's the bureaucrats, they're not interested. Think of Henry Ford when he was working on his car with the Wright brothers. If they had to keep every receipt and worry about the IRS auditing their books and records, we wouldn't have airplanes, we wouldn't have telephones, we wouldn't have anything. We'd be back in the 19th century. And of course, it's the bureaucrats, they're not interested in the national welfare. They're only interested in getting reelected. And what we have to do is take back America's interest. And of course, it's the bureaucrats, they're not interested in the national welfare. They're only interested in getting reelected. And what we have to do is take back America. So remember, I pointed out that Thomas Jefferson said, let us bind up government in the chains of the Constitution. Now, who's binding them up? We got to bind up government by cutting off the flow of funds to Washington, because most of what they spend money on are unconstitutional anyway. Remember, when I went into the Army, I took an oath to protect the Constitution, defend the Constitution from enemies, domestic and foreign.
Yep,
and
same here.
Government,
but it was the Navy.
when you got to conceive of the federal government almost like a foreign power. 30, 40 years ago, we had 200 shoe factories in Brockton and Lynn, Mass. We don't have them there. Will someone bomb them out? Who bombed them out? It's the U.S. government that destroyed those shoe factories. What happened to all the steel factories in Pittsburgh? What happened to all the glass factories in Toledo that are not there anymore?
EPA, man, they had to step in.
It's the government that what happened to our railroads? The government
Okay.
destroyed it. So remember this. Organized crime in America begins with the federal government, and we want to start to live a life the way the Founding Fathers conceived it. Government's supposed to be our servants, not our master. But today, government is our master. When you just work for government, you turn over 50% of your productivity.
It just seems like there's too many lost souls in the sea of life, in a state of cognitive dissonance and going nowhere because they're all sheeple.
Well, that's right. This is no longer a land of the free and the home of the brave. We're the land of the indentured and the home of the meek. And we want to get it to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. Okay.
Isn't it true that if people don't pay taxes, everybody else pays more taxes because of that?
Well, you know what I love? You know what I love? When I'm on a talk show, I get to have. See, a guy will hear me, and he's angry because he pays taxes and I don't pay taxes. So what he tries to do is hang a guilt trip on me. They'll say, look, if you don't like it here, you ought to be glad to pay taxes because we won't get this. No. When a man says that, I know he computes his own tax return. Anybody who goes to an accountant would never ask that question because he's always trying to pay as little as possible. So usually when I get that question, I'll say, sir, well, who does your tax returns? You go to an accountant? He'll say, no, I do them myself. I said, oh. Well, suppose you go to an accountant and he says, you know, you haven't been taking advantage of Provision B over here. If you took advantage of Provision B, you can cut your taxes in half. Would you take advantage of Provision B? What does he say?
Of
Well, yeah.
course.
In other words, so if you can cut your taxes in half legally, you do it. And then I said, and then the accountant says, oh my God, we forgot about Provision A. If we took advantage of Provision A, we can eliminate your taxes entirely. What would you tell the accountant? You want to take advantage of provision A? I've had, I mean, and I just pause, and he doesn't know what to say, because the audience knows the answer is yeah. I want to pay. So then he'll say, well, if it's legal, I said, well, what I'm telling you is legal. So you pay taxes because you think you're required to pay, not because of any noble, I had to pay taxes. You believe legally you have to pay it, so you pay it, but you normally try to pay as little as possible.
Legally, you don't have to pay.
But if you don't have to pay, but if you want to pay, pay. Now I say my function here is to educate the American public that it's voluntary. But if you want to pay, go ahead and pay. I have no qualms with that. But I don't think the government should extort income taxes from all of these people. I mean, especially we've heard so much now of the rule of law. But as of right now, do you all think here anybody going to pay income taxes anyway? How many people are going to stop paying income taxes?
Oh, I'd have to.
I'm going to give it a try.
Okay, very good. You'll have more money to spend, and you'll be doing the patriotic thing to do.
All right.
All right, well.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier,
Damn.
Reader's Digest in the
About
March
to-
1997 issue pointed
I'm about to game here in a little bit. I'm going to be on Twitch. You can catch me on twitch.com/thusfellas. Twitch.com/thusfellas. Oh. Interesting, interesting. Oh, by the way, I have a question. If you feel like responding, my watcher, my wonderful watcher. Are you on your phone or computer? I'll wait a good 10 seconds for this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I know there's a delay, so I'll wait and say 10 right now. 10. All right, well.
out that the IRS seized 3 million paychecks. The IRS seizes houses. They seize bank accounts. Now, obviously, as you already know, that all such seizures are illegal. Since there is no law making anybody liable for tax, no law requiring anybody to pay, how can the government legally seize property? Especially since the due process clause of the Constitution says you can't take anybody's property except pursuant to due process of law, which means a hearing. Now, actually, when the IRS seizes property, they seize property in violation of both federal law and state law. In Title 28, which is called the Code of Civil Procedure, in Title 28, starting at Section 3001, you have what is...
Whew. All right, I think that's all I can do for now. I'm ready to game it up a little bit, baby. Just a little bit, baby. Yeah, I need to stop focusing on these problems because that's all that's on my mind. So I'm gonna save this and then take a break. Take a fat, stinking break. Although, this picture does look a little like... Oh, damn. This picture is just like too much, though. Like, oh, this contrast. Ah. Ah. What happened to my focus? Oh, I moved out of focus. I don't like how red my face looks when it... You know when you zoom in, things get darker? Filters. Let's maybe turn this down a little bit. Maybe that's what it was. Ooh, I was about to get crazy. Oh, nice. This is a good classic. Classic. Uh, is this good? I think it's good. I don't know how much more I can do before it starts getting out of. Like if I zoom in on my face, I don't want it to be ultra red. Like that's probably as much color as I probably have. So I'll just bump this up a little more. Oh, damn. Oh, just like damn. Pure light, yes, yes. All right. Oops. All right, but really though, I'm about to head out. Have a beautiful day. Research, love, and growth. Peace.